this is Charlie. So we're just picking up where we left off at the end of class today. I wanted to make sure that we covered the testing part, which we didn't cover in class. So in order for the testing to work, you need to install the Mocha generator, okay? You could just start searching for it here, Yeoman, look for Mocha. It'll take you there, and then it tells you how to install it. npm install-g generator Mocha. So if you haven't done that already, you should run that. npm install-g generator-mocha or --global generator Mocha, however. And then once you've got that, if you look in here right now, you'll see there is no test folder. But if we write, and if we look in here, you'll see there's no test folder right now, depending on how you look at the project. And we'll do Mocha, and it goes out, and you can see it's creating a test folder and a bower.json and all this type of stuff. And now when we do our lsl, you can see there is a test folder. And when we come back in the IDE, you can see there's now a test folder. And they also created a bower.json, which loads chai and Mocha. And it ran our install and installed chai and Mocha into here. And then in index.html, we reference chai and Mocha, these two JavaScript files. And then we do a little tiny script in our HTML, which gives us a copy of assert, expect, and should, so that those are global variables accessible to us. Not good habit to have global variables like this or to have JavaScript code in here, but I see why they did it in this case, and it is useful to us. And then out here, here's our test, and we run a test here. And we can go ahead and make this clear. All week 06 in class tests, and here's the video test that we're doing right now. And what we ultimately want to be able to do is in our program, we want to see it should prove that Patricia is in the input control, first name input control. So that's the test we want to write. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is we need to convert. We have over here, we have our index.jade where we create the input first name control right here, right? And what we need to do is to convert that, and we have a layout.jade file over here, which is referenced from here. And what we need to do is to make the conversion. So we're going to type, we need to grab a little chunk of text, which I showed you in the assignment, and this is the command to process the copy of views.index and turn it into Jade. Now we'll try and run it one time, and you can see it works. So once you know you've got that code working, you might want to save it by echoing it into a JavaScript file, into a shell file with a name like Jade2HTML. And then you want to do chmod plus X on Jade. Well, let me show you why we're doing it. ls-la. Here's Jade2HTML. You see it doesn't have executable permissions. You can't execute Jade2HTML. So we're going to do chmod plus X, Jade2HTML, and then we do ls-la, and now Jade2HTML goes in bright colors, and we see it has X all over it, right? Where before, no X's, now lots of X's. So everybody has executable permissions on it. The owner, the group, and everybody else can execute Jade.html. So now when you want to run it, you can just run Jade.html. And it renders this index.html file, which is the one that gets rendered for you as a user. and we'll go out to the test folder to, no, it's in the views folder is where it ended up. So here's the HTML for our program at runtime when it's running. And what we care about is the part that's in the body right here. So we'll grab that part and then we'll come over here to our test folder. In the test folder, not in the spec folder, we're going to create a new HTML file and we're going to call it maincode.html. And we'll just delete the contents of that file and paste in the body from our regular index.html file, our main programs index.html file. And then what we're going to do is we need to make sure that's getting loaded in test.js. And the way to do that is before each test executes, we should execute this code right here. Okay, now I wrote all this for you. I'm just trying to make sure you understand how it works. I remember I gave you the test. So in this code, what it does is it loads maincode.html. And this load method actually is yet another variation on getJSON or Ajax. It's a jQuery command to load an HTML file or any arbitrary file from disk across the internet, and it's going to place the contents of it in a place called main area, and that main area ought to be in the index.html file for our test. Okay, so the test index.html file should have a little chunk of a div with an ID equal to main area. Okay, and that's what this command will do. It will load maincode.html into the main area. And then once it's done that, what we're going to ask it to do is put the input control, right, into the input first name, ID of input first name. Into that control, we are going to put the word Patricia, and then we're going to click on the get first name button. So if you come over here again, we're going to click on the first name button, okay? And so that will mean that by the time we get to our test, since that code will execute first before each test that's run. Now we're only going to set up one test in this video. We will check if $, $, input first name .val. So we'll get the first name out of that input control, and then we'll expect first name to equal Patricia. Okay, so that's our test. Now we've got some problems with indentation here, so go to code, go to reformat code, go run, and now everything's nice and neat. Do that all the time. Make sure your code is properly formatted. It makes your job and mine, but your job most importantly, much easier. So now in theory, we have everything set up. So how do we run the tests? You right click on index.html inside the IDE and you choose run, and it loads it. And it's telling us right now that we got an error, which is always good because you'll hit these errors. And it's telling us right now, reference error, $ is not defined. $, of course, is jQuery. So that means we're not loading jQuery. And of course, that's totally true. We aren't loading jQuery, and we should. And so down here, we can load any source files we need. And we're going to load source equals ... /. So we go back out of the test world into the public folder. Oh, look, we don't have it right now. We need to run in the root of this folder. We need to run bower install. And then after we ran bower install in the root of the folder, then we have a components directory, and in there we have a jQuery. So what we need to do here is we need to type ... take me back to the public folder, take me back to the components folder, take me back to the jQuery folder, take me back to this folder, take me back to jQuery.js, which is what we need. And then that completes that part of it. So you might, I think that part you actually do have to do in the assignment. So you'd have to get that guy found. And then we'll come back over here and we'll press F5. And now you can see everything's working better now. Here's the code from our program, the HTML. The buttons aren't doing anything because we don't have them hooked up right now. But the Patricia did get filled in for us, and the test passes because it proves that Patricia is in the first name edit control, which is a kind of test I'm asking you to make sure pass. If, for instance, we misspelled Patricia, and then we get error Patricia does not equal Patricia. So you can see the kind of things that you might do wrong, but you don't ever have to edit. Remember the test.js file. You don't have to do that, but you do have to set up main code, and you do have to set up index.html. So I'm showing you how to do that. And then if you did ever go back in, this video is essentially over, but if you ever did add something else in here, you know, another debug to control, you know, you've added something else to your or you added more realistically, you added a last name, you know, paragraph control into your code, then you can just come to the command line, type do HTML. Now you've got your updated index.html, and you just open that. You grab the new copy of it that now has first name and last name. It's very smart about how it highlighted that still. And then you grab that and you come over to main code. You delete all the main code that exists and you just paste that in. And now when you run the test the next time, well, I should have picked something that would have shown up. But if we run it again a second time and then we go to F12 and we go to the elements and we look inside of here's the main area, and we open that up, and here's our last name field. It did show up. Okay, so the last thing that we need to do here is to start running our tests against our actual code. And that's going to be in our JavaScript folder, right? There's control.js. That's the thing we've actually got to load. And there's a certain feeling that you might want to load it right here, the JavaScript file that you want to test, but that's actually not the right place to load it because it needs to get loaded when main code.html gets loaded. So put your script tag way up here at the top of your main code.html. And because you're going to have to do this over and over, you should probably save it out over here. And that's the correct path to it. So save it someplace so you can do it because you'll have to paste it in more than once. And there's the path to, you go back the same way you did before to get out of the test folder, then to public, then to JS, then to control.js. And that's where control.js is, or should be at any rate. And so once that's loaded, the first thing you want to find out is, did that work? So you go ahead and you go to the test index.html and you run it, and you press F12 and you go to the network area and you press F5 again, and you look and you make sure that control.js is getting loaded, and it is down here. So it gets loaded. And that's the key thing you need to find out. And then, so now we'll come in and we'll write a test to make sure that it's actually working. And again, to save us a little bit of time here, I've got the test written already. And what we're going to do is that we want to prove that Patricia gets, we already proved that Patricia is in the input first name because we did this when we placed it in there in the input first name before each test. We also, before each test, click the Get First Name button, which should trigger an on-click event. And as you recall, that on-click event, when we click on the button to get first name, the thing that it should do is it should put the word Patricia into a paragraph with the Get First Name. It should put it into this paragraph. So we're going to write code to see if it does. And of course, I've written the code to see that it does. It's your job to make sure that it really does get put there. So here's the code. We're going to go look after the button's been clicked. We're going to say, does first name actually contain a first name? We expect first name to be equal to Patricia. So now that we've pasted that test in there, we'll go ahead and we'll run the test, and it fails, right? It says it expected it to equal it, and it doesn't. So this is what's going to happen to you. This is where I expect you to be, is in this, the tests are failing. So you have to figure out, why is it failing? And you go over here and you look at main code.html. You go, my test, okay, whenever the user clicks on get first name, it should put some information in there. And we come over here and we look, here's the get first name button. Oh, but wait a minute. The first name button is called first name button, not get first name. My foolishness. So we come over here and we set the name right for the button. And then when we come back over here and rerun our test, it passes, right? So that's the kind of thing you need to do to make everything work. Make sure that by looking in my test, you can figure out what the name of each control should be and what it should do. And if there's some place where it's not obvious what it is it should be doing, just let me know. All right, in the discussion area. So now we're done. End of video. You guys have a good night. Don't do anything more. I'm going to sleep right now, and don't work too hard, okay?